Hey guys, welcome back to the DrCliff AuD vlog. This is vlog number 67, and today might be a shorter vlog. I haven't really decided yet. It depends on how much I want to talk about this subject I'm about to talk about. And what I want to talk about today is the thing that I hate most about my job. And, you know, when it really comes down to it, I love a lot of stuff about what I do, but the thing that I just absolutely hate is when I have patients who pass away. And the reason I'm bringing it up now is because this last week was actually a really, really bad week when it came to patients of mine passing away. Actually, 2 patients of mine passed away this last week. And as you guys already know, I love each and every single one of my patients. And that's largely why I get so much enjoyment out of what I do. And anytime that I hear from one of my staff that, hey, so-and-so called in and so-and-so passed away, you know, it always kind of takes me by surprise, even though I know that it shouldn't. And, you know, this last week is following a couple weeks ago where I had another patient pass away as well. And, you know, when you serve in the military, like I did, you just know it's a matter of time, and you've put your mind into a place where you know that if you're in there long enough, or if your buddies are in there long enough, that you're eventually going to hear that someone has passed away. At least that's the way that it works when you serve, you know, during combat times and all of that. And I served back, you know, 2002 to 2006 in the Marine Corps with a couple of deployments, and have a lot of buddies who were in and who stayed in, or who were kind of in longer than I was after I got out. And, you know, and people die. That's how it works. And you grow to accept that when you're in the military. And that's also a part of this profession that I'm in. I just happen to be in a profession where there are individuals who are later in life, you know, who get hearing loss, and I am going to be practicing for the next who knows how many years. And a lot of these patients that I'm working with, I mean, if they're in their 70s, 80s, 90s right now, the chances of a good portion of those individuals passing away is really, really high. And so, you know, even though I know that I should be in this mindset of I shouldn't be surprised if it happens, you know, when you're in the civilian world, I mean, it's just really kind of hard to put yourself in that mindset, almost like guarding yourself against someone passing away, as you would when you're in the military. The military is just a completely different mindset that you have to be in order to, like, not let it affect you in an extremely negative way. But it's hard to do that inside of, you know, audiology, inside of any profession. I mean, you know, I think it's different for, you know, when you go to a funeral home and you have, you know, these individuals these I don't know what you call them, caretakers, undertakers, whatnot, at a funeral home, and, you know, they're surrounded by death all the time, and I think that would be really hard. But the thing is that, you know, I form relationships with these individuals over the course of years. And I really haven't even been in this profession that long, and to think of all the patients that I've lost along the way is just something it's not a pleasant part about what I do. And I think, you know, a lot of it is that I spend probably more time with my patients than typical. Not saying that makes me, you know, grow to love my patients more than someone else would love their patients if they spent less time with them. But, you know, the longer you spend time with someone, the more fond of them that you grow, or the more you dislike them, right? I mean, there's always that too. But, you know, I tend to follow more of like a person-centered care approach in my clinic, which means that I'm spending a lot of time like really getting to know my patients so I can better understand how to treat them the most effective way I know how. And, you know, and it's a very heavy time commitment in order to practice it that way. So, you know, upon them initially coming in, there's a lot of like diving deep down into their communication difficulties, and a lot of that is relationship based with family members who we request to come into their appointments with them so we can get to know them too. And so that's kind of the thing that makes this even harder, is that you know the family members and you know how much they're hurting, and it's just it's an unpleasant thing. for them to be going through, and me just knowing how difficult that obviously is for them, getting to know their loved one so much who passed away. That's a really tough thing to handle as well, is that grieving process for them in a lot of ways. But we spend so much time just initially getting to know them and getting to know their family and finding out the communication difficulties within that relationship dynamic. And then we go into this, this like process of actually doing their treatment, where I see my patients usually between 4 and 5 hours over the course of around a 45-day time period, where, you're finding out how their treatment, improved their lives in different areas, what areas we still need to work on. And you just you get to know them so well. And so it's just really hard when they end up going away. And the individuals that I worked with here that have passed away here in the last couple of weeks, I mean, they've been my patients for a good amount of time. One of them was actually just a freak accident. One of them was not even just passing away of natural causes from old age. I don't believe that any of these causes were COVID related. I just think that one of them was an accident, and then two of them is just it was time for them to move on. And, over the course of in my clinic, I typically see my patients anywhere between 2 and 4 times a year. So, and it's kind of funny because every time they come back in, the first 15 minutes of every appointment just seems to be I'm finding out how their life is going and everything like that, telling them about what I've got going on. So there's just that really nice, that really nice dynamic that, you don't get everywhere. I have that type of relationship with my family and with my close friends. And I also have that type of relationship with hundreds of other individuals who are my patients in my clinic. And it just, it's like having a friend pass away to a large degree. And it's kind of difficult to know how to go through that grieving process, and I get to know them obviously better than I know their family members. But, it just seems like, sending a card and sending flowers just isn't enough sometime. But, I just don't know how else to convey my sympathies, and I don't know. And then with COVID going on, it's not even really as possible now to, go to funerals and be in attendance for those. And it's just, I don't know, it's just hard. So, the one thing that one thing that kind of is inspiring to me is this is the reason why I put so much effort into hearing treatment. I mean, I get patients who come in regularly who, they're in their 80s, 90s. I mean, they feel like they don't have that much longer to live. And they say that. They're like, oh, I don't know if I want to treat my hearing loss. I don't know how much longer I have. And I'm like, well, the time that you do have, let's just say hypothetically, you were to pass away in the next 2 to 3 years. I mean, wouldn't you want to make sure that you have your hearing at the best capacity it could possibly be at, so you could communicate with family and friends during the time that you do have? And at the end of the day, none of us really know when we're gonna go. I mean, I could have very well been killed when I was riding my bicycle 3 weeks ago at this point. And I might not even be here, but you can't live your life with this expectation like, oh, I'm just gonna pass away soon, so treating my hearing loss doesn't matter. You could make the argument that it matters even more. And I think that's why I put so much effort into doing hearing treatment. At least I can get some solace knowing that, or some gratification knowing that I know that each and every one of these patients who's passed away, that they were hearing their absolute best that they possibly could up until that moment where they were called back home. So I do take a lot of pride in that, and that makes me feel good. I know that none of them had any complaints with their hearing when it was time for them to go. So like I said, I think today it's just kind of, man, what a depressing week this was with patients passing away. I'm actually proud of myself that I did not cry during this vlog. But it's just been, I know that a lot of people go through, through loss of family, loss of friends. It just really makes you appreciate that relationships, that close relationships that you have are extremely valuable, and you should never take them for granted. And it's still going to shock me every single time I have a patient pass away. It's going to catch me off guard. I even had a 104-year-old patient pass away last year. That caught me off that caught me off guard too. She was a very spry lady, and I still miss her, to be quite honest. And actually, I miss her and I miss her family, because they would all come in together, and I kind of miss those relationships as they tend to move on. So. But anyway, yeah, pretty depressing vlog. I mean, other than that, other than having some patients pass away, this was actually a really good week. We've got a lot of stuff going on, you know, considering the Best Practice Pro Network. I'm thinking of taking that in a couple of different directions, really trying to expand that to help individuals with hearing loss get in touch with a hearing care professional who follows best practices. So there's a lot of good stuff going on. I just kind of had to vent that and get it off my chest. I still love what I do. I still feel like there's no better profession out there, for me anyway, with the relationships that I do get to form with my patients. And the one thing that I can say is that literally every day when I come back home from work, it almost feels as if I've been hanging out with my friends all day, which is a crazy thing to think of. Like I never watch the clock. It always seems like I go in at 7:30 in the morning, and before I know it, it's 5:30 p.m. and I just feel like I've been socializing with my friends the whole day, because really all of my patients are my friends, and I really am truly interested in knowing about their lives and just getting to know them on a deeper level, rather than just, you know, treating the X's and the O's on their audiogram. So that's really it for today, guys. I really appreciate you guys listening to me vent about this. I think this has just been helpful for me to kind of grieve in my own little way about the passing of some of my patients. So hopefully next week is a much more uplifting vlog, and hopefully I got some really awesome information to share with you guys. But if you did like this video, go ahead, give it a thumbs up. Make sure that you're subscribed to the channel, and as always, I'll see you next week.